Now, our final speaker in this session is Richard Dixon, Director of Public Affairs at Concern Worldwide. He's been with Concern since 1990, serving on emergency response assignments in Iran, Tanzania, South Sudan and Kosovo, as well as working in a range of fundraising, web and communications roles. As Director of Public Affairs for the past 5 years, he's been responsible for Concern's fundraising, digital campaigning and communications functions in Ireland. To talk about how Concern is leading the way in demonstrating transparency, Richard Dixon.
So there's a rumour floating around that David McCullough has a 2-part, 4-hour special on CEO charity sector salaries. If anybody goes over time, I have a clock. It says 10 minutes. I don't trust the media, so I don't trust your clock.
I'm afraid you started your time already.
No, absolutely not. Deirdre Marcel said one interesting thing this morning. Actually, it's an incredible conference, and congratulations to reiterate some of the points that were already made. It's been a really interesting conference, but one thing that Deirdre said this morning was around the motivation to giving, and one of the motivations was potentially a religious one. About 3 years ago, 2 days before Christmas, Ian Dempsey, breakfast show. Does that count as part of my time? No. Okay. Did a 7:45 in the morning, gentle little interview, 2 days before Christmas. What can people do for charities at this time of the year, Richard? And I said, well, you know, in Concern's case, if you haven't got your Christmas presents, if things are running a bit late, go onto the website, concern.net, and you can buy chickens, and you can buy goats, and you can buy all of these things and make a contribution to Concern. And Ian Dempsey asked me, and so that will allow you to do good work. And I said, not only will it allow you to do good work, you know, and he interrupted me and he said, it'll make you feel better about yourself. And I said, indeed. And in fact, Ian, what we're doing today, I may have said this, what we're doing today is we're offering a 2-for-1 special. If you buy chickens, 2 people get into heaven rather than 1. If anyone thinks religious isn't important in Irish life, you should have seen the Twitter, phone and letter feed. It was a tsunami of chaos 2 days before Christmas. I'm embarrassed to work in a sector that has 50% public confidence. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that we're doing slightly better than the banks. And we're the ones responsible for that. So what I've been asked to do is to talk about Concern's approach to transparency. And I'll start with a true story. In 1981, we were defrauded by our chief executive, who, through banking incompetence and personal issues, meant that not all the money that was given Concern ended up in Concern's coffers. And that was a step change in Concern. We brought home our country director, Father Angus Finucane, from Bangladesh, and he took over. And Angus got on the road and he visited every hamlet in the country. And he said, trust me, this will not happen again. And we sued the bank and we got the money back. But he went on the road and he knocked on doors and he went on the national airwaves and he spoke to newspapers and he spoke to journalists and he was available 24/7 to say, you can trust us. So Concern's DNA around this is probably a little bit different from others. We're lucky to be alive. We're lucky to be here. We're lucky to be working with the 16 million people that we're working in 27, 28 of the world's poorest countries. Because I don't know if we would have survived that in 2015 if it had happened to us. We've probably got the strictest, most comprehensive systems in place. And a challenge for any charity and for any charity management is actually to make sure that you retain the agility, the flexibility, the competence, and the ability to innovate while making sure that you're accountable and transparent to your stakeholders, the people with whom you work and the people who make your work possible. So that's the background. That's where I'm coming from, and that's where Concern is coming from. We suffered this ourselves. So how are we guided? 4 ways. The governance code is exceptional. We're lucky to have it. There's a small amount of organisations that are fully compliant. There's a huge number that are on the journey. And if you're not on the journey, you do need to get your act together and make sure that you're following the guidelines. The governance code is exceptional for INGOs. There's a DOCAS code, which is very similar. Again, very strong. And it gives you that protection that Kathleen's talking about. We publish our accounts to SORP standards, and we warmly welcome the imminent arrival of reporting standards, both narrative and financial, that Una and her team are going to introduce. It can't come quick enough, he says as he checks his clock. We're signed up to the ICTR fundraising principles. We revisit them. We call Sheila Norden. Can you come in? Can you talk to our staff? We've got new staff starting, and we integrate and mainstream that standards. And we're also one of 17 organisations globally that are audited by the Humanitarian Accountability Partnership, which makes us accountable not only to people here in Ireland, to our funders, to our supporters, but the people with whom, most importantly, the people with whom we work overseas. And that's things like having complaints response mechanisms. And I have been audited by HAP, and it is a most, frankly, unpleasant experience, but we proudly fly that flag because that's what differentiates us. Within our DNA, we have an open information approach. So what we say is, we're open to sharing everything. We've identified 4 exclusions. Are you messing with my watch? Because there's no way I've been up here 7 minutes. We work in some interesting places. So we restrict access to information that may compromise security. We're in Syria, we're in Somalia, we're in South Sudan, Central African Republic, so on and so forth. So we're careful about what we say in those contexts. We protect the confidential details of stakeholders. We protect commercially sensitive information. And we protect internal documents unintended for public circulation. Anything else? Out there, up there. How does it look? Of course, it's about web, it's about social media. Thank you, Kathleen, for having the website up. You swear we spoke beforehand. But it's also about making sure from induction, from recruitment stage on, we're attracting and training our staff about our approach, about the fact within our DNA, we share everything, because if it wasn't for the public, if it wasn't for our funders, we wouldn't exist, and we need to remember that. On the website, there's About Us. There's a section called Transparency, and then in there, we do a data dump, structured, of everything we think people will want to know, and if we get a public request, we put that information up there as well. Board biographies, how we're governed, how we raise money, how we spend money, our mission, our vision, our values, and so on, and so on, and so on. And it's work, absolutely, it's work. And Concern is a large organisation, and we have communications and technical capacity to actually allow us to do this, but to go back to the original point, it's within our DNA. 2 quick slides. 8,500 charities. A couple of hundred signed up to the ICTR principles, another 100 on the Code of Governance Compliance, and some 500-600 on the journey. Best practice for us is the Board Match Transparency International approach onto the transparency scale. It's disappointing that you're not able to publish in some way, or they don't publish who's actually ticked all those boxes, because it's remarkably few organisations are actually 4-star. And incredibly, there's a substantial number of international NGOs who actually have exceptional levels of transparency and accountability. And I've often asked why, and I've been told 2 reasons. A, we're competing globally, rather than just domestically for funds, for funder time. And B, because our programs are not domestic, they are international, we need to be even more accountable and even more transparent. 29 charities are both governance code and ICTR principles compliant. That's a little awkward, because people like David McCullough are going to ask, well, what about the other 8,400 and 8,400 and thank you, 71 that aren't compliant? And are we really saying that those 29 are the only good charities in the country? Of course we're not. 3 last slides. Yeah, it's fascinating. It's great, Richard. It's amazing, and we can tick all of these boxes. You can publish your. In 25 years, I have never been asked for our articles of association. They're up on the website. God knows why, but there you go. Does it impact on delivery? You can have squeaky, clean, spotless transparency and accountability, but are you actually doing anything? Are you actually making movements towards delivering your charitable purpose? I don't see the connection. I think there's been a big rush towards making this happen and charities being more transparent and accountable, but where are the questions from journalists asking us how well we're delivering on our charitable purpose? Because that's what we all want to get to. But until we reach these basic standards, there's no moving on. Until we can say we are absolutely crystal clean, no issues, everything is published. Now, can we please talk about societal issues? Can we please talk about our values as a country? Can we please talk about what we want to do as an organisation? But until we've got the basics done, we don't get to ask that question of the people who actually can allow us to engage with our stakeholders. 2, last rant, we need to collectively push back on unreasonable requests. I come from a place where we publish everything, and some of the nonsense that comes across my desk would make you blush. I acknowledge and herald the role that the Wheel has played in representing the sector, but we need to do more. I'm going to read you one question that I got from a journalist who's now the group political editor of a large newspaper group. I won't name him. But Daniel McConnell said to me, and this is a number of years old, I think it was 2008, 2009. In 2006, Concern deliberately posted a small deficit to reduce its large resources of money. Does Concern have too much money? Question 1. Question 2, to Concern. Is Goal a bloated organisation? Now, I have an opinion on how bloated Goal is, but I don't think Goal would want me to. Is Goal a bloated organisation in terms of staff costs? Concern spent 13 million on staff costs last year alone, are increasing amounts of money being divided away from direct aid and going into administration. And while that level of understanding of what we do is out there, we have a problem. But we don't get to go after that problem. We don't get to educate. We don't get to move on until we get the basics right. And collectively, we have yet to get the basics right. End of rant. I presume this has gone up on a website or something, so there's some bits and pieces there that sum up what I've just said. And that's me. Thanks very much.